saying.
For example, if procedure helpers brought something to someone's attention, that a three-ton breakage, and they happened to hit them at a moment where they couldn't take criticism too well, and so they snapped back with some comments that were harsh or heated, as T said, and then they might later come back and calm down and be more receptive. But what T's talking about is there's no longer, and I want you to continue, there's no longer you've been in this class too long to let your vehicle get away with a response to help in that way.
In other words, you've got to remember that you still want to keep the vibration calm and very comfortable in your craft. Now, we feel like in some individuals, because we haven't received a report, we assume that the ones who have responded badly in the past time are improving some, but there are still some who are not, and you don't want that kind of action. Now, what can you do when somebody has a heated response to something that you're trying to help them with? What can you do as an individual? Have another response back to them? Which the answer is no. But I know what I would do. I would probably stand there shocked for a moment and then say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause you to feel bad. All I want to do is help you. Then if they want to have a continued response, then you have to ignore it. But we hope that nobody will continue. Now, in other words, it is not tolerable. It is not tolerated in the next world. That kind of action is as foreign as having sex in the next world.
It's the same thing, because you're getting rid of that vehicle's explosiveness and then regretting it. In other words, the restraint isn't keeping you from giving in to the lower vibration. You're giving in to the lower vibration and wishing you hadn't. So it'd be exactly the same thing to give in to the lower vibration of sensuality or anything else, and then regret that you gave into it. And we feel like you have had enough time in working on discipline and self-control of your emotions and your vehicle to in fact, in a way, we even see it as worse somehow to give in and then come back and apologize, or then be more gentle in a few minutes, because then you've done what you wanted to do. You got the steam off. You got the anger out. And anybody, any human even, can get rid of the hostility or ugliness or sarcasm and heated remarks, and then apologize, and they always think that their apology should be accepted, or their change of attitude should be accepted. And in our minds, it shouldn't be accepted. What should be accepted is a proper response the first time. Do you see what we're saying? Because an apology is just like a way of wanting to butter up your poor action. It's like, I did it, now let me get away with it. Because now that I've done it, I'm smiling again, and I'm saying I didn't really mean it. But you meant it. You let yourself get away, or you wouldn't have done it. You see what we're saying? So we feel that there is no place at all in your class any longer for people permitting their vehicles to get away with ugly or unpleasant responses at this time.
Now, an example that happened the other day, this doesn't apply to what we read today. This is a second incident where an individual in the North Craft wanted to close the vent because they were taking their vitamins and the cool air was blowing down on them. And the individual who wanted the vent to be closed looked to another individual at the checkpoint to see if it was okay. And the person who was being the check didn't actually agree that it needed to be closed. But the person who wanted to close it wanted to close it. So much so that that individual said, "This is serious business, I'm not kidding."
In other words, the check partner was kind of laughing as if to say, "Oh, is that really necessary to close the vent?" And then the person who wanted to close the vent came right back with, "It isn't funny. I want to close this vent."
That's a farce.
Yes, check partners are farce in a circumstance.
They're going to do as they darn well please, whether it's somebody likes it or not, which is very inconsiderate, plus it's rude, plus it's against anything that should be happening in your craft at this time. So that's only one example, and we want you to, anytime you see this happening, that is, if it happens 3 times, it's a 3-time breakage, and you have a procedure for that. Then if it isn't breaking, then by all means let things know about it so we can find out if that person is still interested in wanting to be what he's here for. Because in our mind, if a person doesn't want to correct these things, then what are they doing here?
Yes, it's almost like it almost doesn't add up to say I want to be. I'd like to remember the next level. I want to correct these things. I want to be in this class to learn thorough self-control and discipline, and then prove that I only want to do it as long as I can still get away with a certain amount of conduct unbecoming a member of the next level. You can't say to the next level, I want to hang on to these few things, and the ones that I do want to correct, shouldn't they be enough? You just can't do it. You have to be willing and desire very strongly to correct all characteristics that would be out of place.
If one person can be even-tempered and can be kind and considerate and not be 100% on procedures and everything, but not make any waves, then it is possible for the remainder 34 people to do it. If nobody can do it, then we say it's impossible for you to do it. But we know that more than one person can do it. So that means everybody can do it. We don't like these questioning of procedures with reactions. You should be past that. You should be able to handle it in a very calm way without making any waves, without being affected by it, because it really isn't that important. The important thing is that you handle it in a way that is becoming to you as a member of the next level. If you bring in your humanness, then what have you accomplished? This goes back to what we said earlier about why do a task if you're only going to do it halfway? Do it the best that you can according to procedure. If you do it against procedure and you accomplish it, you have accomplished nothing. But do that experiment whatever it is. So the main thing is to live every moment that you are in this classroom as a member of the next level. When you come to retreat and you go out on the task, a special task that you have been given since you've been coming to retreat, since we've been here, take what you've learned back to your craft. Make it become a part of you. And don't let it just be done while you're here at retreat. You work as a team when you're here. You're trying to work as a team. When you go back to your craft, you're still a team. But you have little groups broken up, like when you go into a lab, you're working as a team there, and you should accomplish that task as a team. Like a question came up about the serial task. Should somebody be a primary, or are they just, what position do they have? If you are on the serial crew, you are a member of that crew. Now, what you consider a primary, I don't know. But you work out your strategy so that they know what you are. All of you know how to prepare cereal, okay? So, what does it matter if somebody is a primary or a secondary or what? In other words, it's according to your strategy, right? So, these things we want you to work at all times, every day, every moment, even when you're asleep. Okay? But the most important thing is guard your temper, your quick responses, and be aware that it's very obsolete to be having any kind of responses. And even the ones who don't have responses like that don't become so comfortable to think that you can't have. Always question yourself and see if maybe you can't do better. Okay?
You know what, I just want to say one more thing, and sometimes I feel like the vehicle unconsciously, I know that the vehicle gets a pleasure out of getting away with lower vibrations. And if you could learn that there's a greater pleasure to be gained, an actual pleasure, and it's a greater pleasure to be gained by knowing you have control of the vehicle, and that when it wants to act, you can hold the reins and force it to act only the way that is agreeable to your next level mind. And there is a pleasure that you all have experienced when you haven't let the vehicle do what it wanted to do. Maybe you haven't thought of it in terms of how nice it was that I could keep the vehicle from doing what it wanted to do. And there's nothing wrong with recognizing that as a right type of pleasure, because that control is a very satisfying feeling to have that control. Okay?